the way that Challengers is structured, because of the amount of business we do, those things almost always fall just to you and me. And since we're already both working full-time hours at the store and then part-time hours doing extracurricular things for the store,
like
adding
this
on more becomes a thing of like, how badly do you want to do this? Instead of just being able to say, well, these 2 part-timers can do it. Done.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
See, now I was all set to start this episode of the podcast with other retailers' doom and gloom and how the sky is falling.
Uh-huh.
But now that you propose the possibility
Only the possibility.
of a Chicago Bears versus Los Angeles Chargers Super Bowl,
Los Angeles, that can't be right.
that's all I can think of.
It's definitely, I mean, it is one of the possibilities going into the NFL postseason.
Now, I am a Chargers fan since the early 80s.
Yes.
I've even seen the Chargers play in Soldier Field and lose. And you are, I guess, a Bears fan?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
if that's even a thing.
It is. Unfortunately, it is a thing.
And I've already found out that the Chargers will be playing the Bears in Soldier Field next season sometime.
You did notify me to that.
So that's a game we'll have to try to get to.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously,
And-
depending on the time of year and the day of the week and all of that stuff.
But I never considered that it was even a possibility that they'd make it to the Super Bowl, especially since I don't think either the Bears or the Chargers, or while we're at it, the Cowboys or the Eagles, will make it to the Super Bowl.
Well, first of all, shut your mouth. Second of all, you're 75% right. 3 of those teams will definitely not make it to the Super Bowl.
You don't even think the Bears are going to make it.
I think the Bears are for sure going to be the Eagles.
Yes, I'm with you there.
That seems like...
Yep.
Not, like I said to someone this week, not a gimme, but definitely a very winnable game for the Bears.
Yeah.
You know, winning their division, maybe.
It's just that
like going
when they
like
beat
becoming
the
NFC
Eagles,
champions, I would give that that's a maybe. But like essentially then going to and even potentially winning the Super Bowl, let's take it one step at a time, you know?
by the way, the Saints.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saints will be in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
You'd ask me. I'm answering.
Yes. Yeah. I think the Saints were the one thing we could all sort of agree on was...
Okay. But nobody had mentioned them.
Yeah, it's true. Because the analyst I was reading, I think he had the Saints, and then on the other side he had the Chargers.
I do like getting my football analyses from 538.
Okay, I usually don't go looking for it anywhere, frankly. I would sometimes read the Sun-Times coverage of the Bears, but I've stopped doing that. I'm a Bears fan. I'm definitely a Bears fan. I like watching the games. Since I work Sundays, I usually have to record them so I can watch them later.
It's way more fun watching them recorded.
It definitely makes them go faster.
Yeah.
Because there's times where you can skip over, say, like commercials and coverage of other games you don't care about. And
Horrific point deficits.
Or, I was going to say, slower decision-making times on field, where sometimes a call is in dispute and we have to spend 15 to 20 minutes going back and forth to New York and bringing in analysts and
but then,
replays.
then
and
you
it's
don't
just
get to hear what Dean Blandino or Mike Pereira has to say.
I usually care more about Dean Blandino.
Well, he's a little bit more excited.
Okay. He's a guy that, because he's on camera, I think more than I hear him on broadcasts, he always, because of the delay that they have him on, he feels more like a deer in the headlights to me.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I don't follow football coverage in general. So usually, like, what I know about a Bears opponent for the week is whatever I'm told by the broadcasters during the game. Like,
No.
I don't follow it, so I could barely tell you what other teams are in contention for the Super Bowl, who's in the AFC versus the NFC. Like, I know, like, NFC North, I know that really well, but everything else is just like, I don't know.
It's weird that you don't follow coverage of other teams and things, because you do co-host Contest of Conferences, this NFL postseason podcast here on the Yak Channel Podcast Network in Chicago.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about for the next hour. Football, right?
Oh, golly. I don't know that I could do an hour on football.
The irony being that by the time this episode airs, everything will already have, we'll know the next round.
Yeah, the first week of
The
games
wild card
will be
week.
over. Saturday and Sunday's games.
Yeah, and also we could spend this next hour giving our predictions to Wrestle Kingdom 13, which happens
I
in
couldn't yet.
just a few hours.
I haven't done my picks yet.
Ugh.
I don't usually do picks.
You have to get your picks in before
1 a.m.
1
Friday.
1 a.m.
1 a.m. Friday. Maybe it'll be the next thing I do after this. Actually, the next thing I do after this will be some subscriber additions, and then I'll do that.
Well, don't look too far ahead because we still have to talk about an entire year's worth of sales.
Uh-oh.
And that includes top sellers, non-top sellers, and just numbers overall.
Okay.
But what I want to start with is what I alluded to before, in that several of our fellow retailers have started posting these "the sky is falling,
Yep.
the industry is dead"
It is January.
emails. And it is more of the veterans,
Yep.
more of the old guard is the phrase that was used.
Shocker.
Even though one particular person said that he's an old guard for being in this industry for 35 years. I'm over 28 years, and I don't consider myself old guard.
No. Well, there's a reason for that, but we'll get into it later.
So the gist of it is that several people in the industry are worried about the future of the direct market.
Sure.
Not maybe the future of comics, but the future of stores that specifically sell periodical comical book magazines.
Yeah, I mean, to digress a little bit, I will say right now, comics will absolutely outlive the direct market.
Oh,
Comics
for
are
sure.
around before the direct
Yeah.
market. They'll be around after the direct market. Not worried about comics as a medium.
I mean, that's exactly what I said about me and my previous employer.
Sure.
So yeah, there's precedent for, not that those are equal in any terms. It's just that comics will exist
Sure.
long after. I mean, I hope I'm not around for that. I hope that it's
Sure.
the stores not be.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I mean, selfishly, you always hope that, like, you'll weather a storm or you'll survive some sort of change to your employment, your industry, what have you. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the art form will absolutely keep going.
Well, to backtrack, 2017 was our first down year. And we'd been lucky that we'd had, 9 years of growth.
Sure.
Maybe not the growth we expected.
No,
I mean, honestly,
definitely not.
2016, and we laugh about this, but 2016 is, what we did in 2016 is what we predicted we would do in our second year of business.
Yeah.
Granted, we were bad at projections.
Yeah, and, I mean, to be frank, those numbers were completely made up.
I mean, based in our then current reality, not the reality that become challengers.
Yeah, I mean, it was based off of the idea of stores in the city, what we knew they did, but not the neighborhood we were in, a brand new business with our square footage, with our product mix. Like, those things, they matter and they change. And we were making up numbers to get loans, basically.
I mean,
Long
we
story
weren't
short.
just pulling numbers out of a hat, but
No.
we may as well have been.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers were overly optimistic, as we would find out.
And honestly, when we look at the 2016, it was a decent year. We'll get into the details in just a minute, but 2018 was almost back at that level.
Yeah.
So what I'm unclear of is how we say we have had every year except one has been an improvement of the year before.
Right.
But do we count 2018 as improvement even though it's not better than 2016? It's definitely better than 2017.
Yeah. I don't remember. What is the difference between 18 and 16?
So the difference between 16 and 17, we were down 6.82%.
From 17 and from 16.
Yes.
Okay.
2018, we were up 6.14% from 2017.
Right.
Which means 2018 is still down 1.10% from 2016.
Oh, okay. It's flat.
I mean, there's a lot of flat numbers. But the point I wanted to make with one of the longer posts, and I didn't read all of it because it was a lot of here's the problem, here's my solution kind of thing. And I've seen a lot of here's my solution kind of things, and I don't necessarily agree with a lot of those. Because I don't think here's my solution is as helpful as here's a possible solution for everybody.
Yeah, some of the problems with, and we're as guilty of this as anyone, and we'll continue to be guilty of it in 2019 and this episode probably specifically. But when retailers talk about solutions to problems in the industry, their only data set is their store. They can talk to other retailers and you'll get anecdotes and stuff, but very few retailers are laying out their numbers for one another to say, here's what we're seeing. So you can extrapolate things from sales figures that you see on like ICV2 or Comicron or whatever, and you can take a look at your own internal numbers, but I mean, that's correlation, not causation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you can pull things out of that, but what's causing it, what the root problem is that you need to solve, the solutions, one store's solution is going to be another store's problem, and vice versa. Like, these are, so it's very difficult to read someone saying, well, my store's down, here's all the things that caused it, Marvel and DC need to fix all these things in 2019. And it's like, well...
Here's the catch. The gentleman who was discussing this had 7 years of double-digit growth every year. And this year, he was flat.
That just means you're a mature business.
But he's all worried because he didn't have a double-digit gain.
Well, shit, yeah. I mean, if all you knew was double-digit gains and 1 year didn't happen, you would be freaked out too.
Well, I think there's like freaked out, like, okay, we're the same, versus holy shit, we lost thousands and thousands of dollars.
Sure. But I guess it's just a matter of like, I mean, we were seeing growth, but we weren't necessarily seeing huge, explosive growth.
Right.
So flat, like when we went down, it was just like, well, that sucks. Hopefully it's just a bump in the road. And it turned out to be a bump in the road. But yeah, I mean, definitely people who are seeing nothing but success, when they see a flat year, that looks like catastrophic failure.
It just seems so foreign to me as a...
To expect good things? Be honest, that's what you meant.
I mean, obviously I would not want 2018 to be the same as 2017.
No.
But I'm happy to have 2018 equal 2016.
Yeah.
And I'd be happy, again, if we were still even in 2019.
I'd like 2019 to go up.
Sure, I would too, but I'll take even over down.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, if that's the choice.
Yeah.
But assuming there are 3 choices, I would take up.
I have a page of notes, but looking at it now, I realize that there's things that I don't have that I want to go back and do specifically for each category. I want to know what percentage of our total sales that category is. You know, what percentage of our sales is graphic novels? That kind of stuff.
I had that. I don't know if I can bring it up on my phone, though.
Okay. I mean, I can obviously do it. We just don't have it for
but
talking points here.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I can...
And I don't have the totals on here, which I'm not talking about the totals. Another thing that retailers were talking about is how badly their graphic novel sales have declined. And in an uncharacteristic move, a lot of them were posting what their actual sales numbers were for their top 10 graphic novels.
Okay, sure.
And while we always post the top 100 single-issue comic sales and graphic novel sales, we never talk about the quantities. And I don't consider Challengers a big store. We're not big square footage. We're not big dollar amount.
Nope, definitely not.
But everybody that posted numbers for their top-selling graphic novels on that thread, I looked at and said, oh my god, those are terrible.
Yeah, they definitely... I mean, the one that you showed me, I didn't think like those were numbers to brag about necessarily.
Those were... Well, that's their point was they're not.
Okay.
But... And these are, like, obviously, we know stores around the country. We know owners of the stores. It's hard on Facebook to remember who owns what store because it doesn't necessarily say. It's just broken down by names.
Sure.
But you have an idea of a store's size, or I don't want to say importance, but their
significance.
Yeah, their significance. Thank you in the industry. And when you see numbers I think Challengers is the best store hands down. Right? I mean, that's why we do this.
I hope so.
That's why that's what we're striving for.
We try to make the best store that we've been to,
and we have an award that says we succeeded at least 6 years ago.
Amongst the stores that were nominated, we were the best that year.
Right. But I don't consider us in any way in hierarchy in the list of the stores around the nation based off of sales.
Yeah.
Or, experience, we have that.
Okay. Sure.
We definitely have that. You and I combined.
A disgustingly long time.
Yeah, well over 50 years of combined experience, which is so weird to say and so weird to think of doing this for 28 years and old guard mentality, which, again, we mentioned earlier and we'll probably discuss later. But so many times we don't get involved in these discussions because we just don't. We don't think that...
obviously, I don't do the social media stuff, so I'm not going to get involved. Like, you and I will talk about it.
Right.
But my feeling has always been, especially a lot of the stores that we see having very strong opinions about things online, I feel like we're running different stores. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And while we do have a old or back issue category, it's microscopic. We don't push that. And
it did go up this year, though.
Yeah.
The number went up.
Well, there's only 3 categories that went down, but we'll get to that later.
Sure.
So there's Chuck Rosansky from Mile High had a long post about how he closed one of his stores. He only has the giant warehouse left. But then deeper in the post, he talks about how there are 2. He's got 2 stores now. But earlier he said he only had 1. So I didn't understand.
I don't know
how that works, and I don't. I feel okay talking about this because he published this in his store newsletter.
Yeah, this isn't something from a private Facebook group that we're talking about or quoting.
But there seems to be more and more retailers worried about the industry collapsing on itself and blaming publishers and blaming output and saying that it's
again, it is January.
It's a system that's been in place for 46 years now or something like that, and how things need to change, but no publisher is willing to take the steps to do that. And to take the majority of the risk off of the retailer means it has to go to the publisher, and what publisher is going to want to do that? Credit is always given, rightly so, to Boom Studios for their Boom Guarantee program.
Valiant makes a lot of stuff full discount. It's 57.5% off a cover, and full returnability for a lot of their comics.
Aftershock is now doing full returnability on issue 1s, and they have a new, not publishing initiative, but a new sales plan for this year that will be released a little more as time goes by. But it's the tagline is the year of reading dangerously.
Sure. Usually when retailers are complaining about publishers, what they specifically mean is Marvel and DC. Other publishers usually have programs in place to spread the risk around. It's just those publishers are not a huge part of most store sales. Marvel and DC are, and Marvel and DC have gotten to the point where they are not really doing any sort of risk sharing. Marvel, historically, as in the last 17 years at least, have really nailed down the idea of these are collectibles and we will reduce the cost that you pay for them, but that means a higher buy-in because these things are things that you need to have 400 and 500 copies of. And if that means 200 go unsold, if you're making more profit on the extra 300 you did sell, then that all works out. Who cares that 200 are getting thrown away? Because it helps Marvel sales figures and it gets more copies in store and it gets stores betting harder on Marvel. DC used to be a little bit more of the retailer's friend in the, this will be returnable, or, this is not necessarily about collectors so much as it's about readers. But they've kind of stopped doing that. They've started to adopt more of the Marvel properties and principles as far as how they work with the retail community, so as to be, if not as bad as Marvel, then not as good as they used to be.
Yeah, they're starting it up a little bit more. They're doing returnability on Naomi and a few other things here and there.
Yeah, but
it's not a line-wide initiative.
Those are exceptions now.
Yeah. I'll take exceptions.
Yeah, but even the stuff that they're doing some returnability on, the Zoom books or Ink books, it's tied to other things.
Right.
Order this threshold and then it's returnable.
Yeah, this threshold of a completely different audience's book.
Yeah, because they don't have anything to compare it to.
Right. Then just make it up.
Yeah.
So it's so weird to me how, specifically they're tying the
Mirror book,
Mirror
and
book,
Super Sons book.
and the Super Sons books, both those, which are for two different audiences.
Yep.
They're tying it to Superhero Girls, which is a
Much younger
third
audience.
audience. Yeah, and a much younger audience. And like Mara even says, hey, there's like mature themes and language in this book.
Mira is their YA book, and Super Sons is their
Preteen?
like Amulet Bone book, middle grade. I think you'd probably
Middle
call that.
grade is the phrase, that's correct.
Yeah. While Superhero Girls, to my knowledge, is not. That's definitely intended for a elementary school to early reader audience. At least that's who we see buying it.
But as you said, they don't have anything else to tie it to. So, I mean, we're not eligible for returnability on those because
We're not buying them that
we
much.
went deep on Superhero Girls because we saw the potential.
Yeah, they gave us galleys of the two books, but yeah, I don't think either one of them I would put a level yet of like graphics or for second.
Hey, man, I would
or anything
love
like that.
for those things to take off.
Sure, I
I
mean,
don't know that, but I mean, they're not for our market. Hands down, they're not for our market.
But that's the thing. We do sell books for those categories. I don't look at them as being on the level as what those other publishers are putting together.
Yeah.
I understand the premise of what DC's doing with it, why they're the authors they're picking, the properties they're picking, the design, all of that stuff. It's just I look at it and I go, it's like the other stuff, but not as good. Like it doesn't. I can look at something from First Second or from Scholastic and go, okay, that's a great cartoonist. That's a really strong premise. And then I look at this other thing that's like, there's just this kind of shrugged shoulder of like, I don't know, Aquaman, but for teenagers. I don't know. Sure.
So I'm going to digress for a minute here,
Uh-huh.
and I want to talk about the ethnicity of Damian Wayne.
Okay.
What is Damian Wayne's lineage?
Sure. Well, the Al Ghul line is Middle Eastern. It was always my understanding, my
Right.
read of the situation.
And it's specifically in the most recent arc that Talia was in for Batman.
Sure.
Joelle Jones really went out of her way to make her look more Persian and
Sure.
of the particular geographical region.
Yeah.
But how often is Damian depicted as just a white kid?
Oh my God! One of the weirdest images of Damian Wayne. I want to say it was probably. Was it the first Greg Capullo Batman one where it was like all of the like it was Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson was there and
Yeah,
Jason
yeah.
Todd and they look
Yeah.
like one character in 4 stages of life. It was they usually just draw him as young Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Is kind of the way they draw Damian.
But he's not supposed to be.
No, he's
And
not a clone.
there were certain points where sometimes he's colored with darker skin, which he should have.
I suppose, yeah.
He's not even in the Super Sons book.
No, they made up a different
They
character.
made up a different character, and we had somebody complain about the whitewashing of that.
Okay.
Like, you take Damian Wayne, who at best has minor ethnicity, minority status,
Sure.
and you're whitewashing it.
Yeah, I can understand that complaint.
Ian Wayne, like, why? What's the point of doing something like that? I don't understand.
Yep. Feels like changing it to change it. But I haven't read that book yet,
Sure,
so I don't
right,
know.
and maybe that's the point.
Yeah,
Maybe-
although I did flip through it, and the few pages I saw made me think, oh, this is not good.
Oh,
It
yikes.
doesn't seem good. But I will absolutely read both those books before we get them in so I can be informed about them. But yeah, honestly, nothing I've seen so far from those 2 books makes me think they're going to take off
okay,
for
but
that audience, but who knows?
we digress. So, Dal, is the sky falling?
Yeah, I mean, look, the market has a bunch of problems to it, but the market's almost always had problems about it. Like, I can recall vividly the Bill Jemas, Joe Quesada era that I'm sure a lot of the stores who were complaining would love for Marvel to go back to. That was no picnic.
No.
There were tons of copies of Marvel and the craptacular B-sides clogging up back issue boxes because you never knew what was going to be a hit and what wasn't, and they weren't reprinting anything. So stores were ordering every book like it was going to be the next Ultimate Spider-Man. And that led to some really, really bad decisions when it came to ordering. Like, some stuff hit, some stuff didn't, same as always. You and I had briefly talked about this when we were talking about some industry stuff, and you had mentioned that, like...
This is the dumbest thing,
Uh-huh.
but sometimes we get into some really in-depth store conversations,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, oh, we should be recording.
Oh, I don't care.
No, I do, because it's like, well, what are we going to
Content.
not talk because we need to
Content.
save it up?
No.
But at the same time, sometimes when we revisit a subject while recording, we don't have the same vigor or passion that
No,
we did.
for sure. But the thing that I had said was that, like, the folks that were saying, like, the industry's dying, like, or their stores are dying, or the market's dying, it is dying, and it's being reborn at the same time. Everything's dying all the time. Everything's also being born. For the old guard, as you've been saying, that's part of the problem, is that they've been doing this for decades, and they're expecting the industry to be the same for decades, which it isn't, and it won't, and it shouldn't be. And they also expect to be around doing the same things for decades, which it won't, and it shouldn't be. The way that they're responding to this, the new stores aren't saying it because the new stores have a different perspective, a fresher perspective. They have their own ideas and their own way of viewing the industry. And you either adapt to that as an old store or you go away. The stores that are complaining right now were the young stores at one point that the stores older than them were complaining about.
Sure.
Those old stores were like, I don't understand why I have to get a distribution deal with who was the West Coast. Who's the first distribution guy?
Phil Sealing?
Yeah, like why do I have to do that stuff? Why can't I just get the returned copies of comics that someone on a newsstand cut the logo off of to return for credit? Why can't I just buy those logo-less copies up and resell them like I've been doing for the last 10 years? Like, why do I have to get new comics? It's ridiculous. There's all these old comics, and I can get them for way cheaper and make more money, and now I got to get, 40 or 50% off a cover instead of paying, a penny a piece for these comics? Like, what? This is ridiculous. The whole market's different. I don't like it. Go back to what I understand. So there are structural problems in the industry, and I do not want to minimize that. There are things that Patrick and I complain about literally every episode about how dumb the industry can be. But a lot of these are things that you just have to get used to, things that are changing in the industry that your store may not be as accustomed to dealing with. And you're going to have to find some way to make your peace with that and move forward. I don't know that we're going to be able to long term. I mean, there's always the risk that a change is going to happen in the industry. Some stores are going to acclimate themselves to it. We won't see it coming early enough, or we won't understand how to change it, or we just won't
seeing
like
it
the
coming
change.
isn't good enough. You have to be able to navigate it and know what to do about it.
Yeah, the best stores are the ones that can see that stuff coming, can predict it, can read the tea leaves enough to go, okay, well, this is the thing I've been investing in, a product line, a publisher, a creator. The market's moving away from that. What is the next thing? How do I get to the next thing? And the market's done that any number of times.
And we are by no means trendsetters or tastemakers. We are behind the curve, I think, most of the time on following things. We're not as behind as Diamond, where 2 years after enamel pins were a thing, they're like, hey, you guys should stock enamel pins.
The amount of graphic novels that are huge sellers in other markets, the Diamond still is like, do we have to stock those? Yes, you do. You're the number one comics distributor in North America. You absolutely need to carry some of these other publishers. And there's stuff that we have to get through other distributors when it's like, this is a graphic novel. This is just a graphic novel. It's not some other format or some weird thing that Diamond doesn't think is a comic. It's obviously a comic book, but Diamond doesn't stock it, or if they did stock it, they don't restock it. And it's dumb. It's just dumb things. But anyway, there was a time 28 years ago where graphic novels were not a thing for a comic shop.
Yeah.
Marvel or DC did a few of them, and they were largely for the book trade. They weren't for comic shops. Comic shops had back issues. Why would they want a collected book of, Dark Knight Returns or the Black Costume Saga when they can just sell you Amazing 252 and Dark Knight #1? Like,
when I was a kid, there were graphic novels, but they were like Origins or Son of Origins.
I had a stepbrother that I got his hand-me-down copies of these paperback novel-sized collections of, like, Jack Kirby Captain America comics.
Yeah.
And Steve Ditko Spider-Man
And those
comics.
were available in your local Crocs and Brentanos or Walden Books.
But a comic shop, that was collectibles. Why would they want something that was constantly in print to sell people coming in when they could sell them a $30 Spider-Man comic, or $25 Batman comic? So it took a little while for stores to really build in a graphic novel section. Now, if you go into any comic shop and they don't have, bookcases full of graphic novels, it's like, what? what year is this?
How do you survive?
How is this a comic shop in the 21st century? But that took a while, and there's definitely stores that went out of business shaking their fist in the direction of graphic novels, because graphic novels made back issues irrelevant now.
Yeah.
People don't need to get Walking Dead #1 for $200 when they can just buy Walking Dead Volume 1 for $10 or $15 or whatever it costs now.
It's $18 now.
So same thing for Saga Volume 1 and for, the Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man graphic novels and all that stuff.
And there's still people that want those first appearances and first prints and things, but
the market is so
the
much
vast majority
bigger
isn't that.
if you're selling them graphic novels, because they don't have to get a collectible. It can be two markets that you're serving. But there's absolutely stores that went away not wanting to get on board with graphic novels. There will be something else. Hopefully it's something that stores can adapt to and find a way forward with. But yeah, man, there's going to be changes. There's going to be things where the way you used to do it doesn't work anymore. And that's not a publisher's fault or your customer's fault or Amazon's fault or whatever. Like, there are things that you just need to adapt to and figure out a way to serve your audience and be a comic shop going forward. Now, again, that is not to say there are not identifiable, solvable problems in the direct market. There are dozens of them. We could spend literally an hour just naming those problems. So there are things that stores should complain about, but a lot of the things I see are the same retailers who have been doing this for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, complaining every January that the sky is falling, that it's not working out, that they're seeing a downturn in sales, and then their problems, and then those problem solutions are things I look at and go, this is ridiculous.
I don't in any way think that we are smarter than anybody else.
No.
We've talked about this recently before. We're not the hardest working either.
Nope.
But oftentimes, it seems to me that when other people are saying, hey, look, this is a problem, it's a problem we had a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we have these problems, but I don't want to say we identify them first, but maybe they just come to us earlier.
I don't see.
And I always feel better about our standing, honestly, when other retailers say, hey, like, here's what I see happening as a problem, and I think, oh, we went through that.
So, to my mind, the healthiest way that the direct market can work is as a reader market. You're engaging with people on the level of comics as an art form. That's something that you can learn, that's something that you can identify, it's something that you can see the changes of, and you can address more directly. The problem is, I think a lot of stores are approaching things as a collectibles market, and that can cover up, at times, a lot of inferiorities in the reader market. If you're a store that's selling 1 in 5,000 variant covers, and you've got a guy who wants to buy them from you, you're not going to notice how poorly an average Marvel comic or Image comic or Aftershock comic might be selling, because that guy is spending $5,000 on that one comic book, at least.
I mean, if you sell an Amazing Fantasy 15, your month's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. But those reader problems, those base level problems for the comics market, you will notice them in time. We notice them a lot earlier because we don't have, a huge gaming market. We don't have a huge collectibles market. We don't have a variant speculator market. We don't serve that side of the industry. So all we're serving is the comic book reader side of it. So when publisher initiatives aren't working, or when a creative team isn't working, we see that right away because that's the numbers we're dealing with. So that's kind of figuring out like how to best connect comic book readers with comic books is kind of our whole thing. Like, that's sort of it. That's all we're trying to do.
One of the things we don't track year-end that I'd like to go back and look at is number of transactions.
Yeah, I was thinking about going ahead with that, although I will note that our bag tax number is up this year.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we had the bag tax for all of 2017.
Well,
so that could be
just January. We had it starting February 1st.
Okay. Because it's a category that went up.
But that's what they said. They said more like after, like when bag taxes go in effect, people are like, no, forget it.
But just
by year 2, they're like,
yeah. Just anecdotally, I would look at that number and go, I think raw transactions were probably up.
Okay.
Because we gave out more bags, which means more people were coming in for transactions. But yeah, that's
bag
definitely
tax
a number.
was up 18.33%.
I think-
that is not 1 month.
Starting week 1 for 2019, I'll start putting down our number of transactions
Okay.
on the weekly totals list. I don't know that I will have a day to go back through all of the 2018 ones to add up 365 days worth of
But I mean,
transactions.
is there not just a way to find it in Comic Suite?
Maybe. There might be a way. I'll take a look. It's weird.
You're weird.
I am weird, that's true.
I mean, just to see.
Yeah, you're right. No,
Just
I mean,
to see
it
if-
is. I thought the same thing when I was doing the numbers for the end of the year is, boy, that's a number we should have. just to get an idea of not just number of transactions, but what is our transaction total average. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? The average
Well,
transaction total
yes.
is how much
Yeah.
money.
I mean, there's definitely curve blowers,
Yeah.
like when you have a club member come in after 2 months
Mm-hmm.
and spend hundreds of dollars versus a club member that comes in every week and spends like $5.
Yeah, but that average number is still useful, and that's just a basic retail thing that every store should have, and it's dumb that we don't track it. So that goes under the column of this is how not smart we are.
Yep. Prove that every day.
Basic things that every business should have and use as a way of determining the overall health of their business, and going into year 12, we're going to be starting soon.
Yeah. Yes.
Just
Uh-huh.
now we're
In
having
April.
a discussion of like maybe we should start doing that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, maybe we should.
Do you remember at the old place we used to have to track how many people were in the store
Sure.
but didn't buy anything?
Yeah, looker's key. Yeah.
Yep. So let's go over briefly 2018 versus 2017 sales by category.
Okay.
And we mentioned before, only 3 categories were down.
And I-
Dal, can you... I'm sorry.
I was going to say, before we do this, I promise for the next episode we will have a breakdown of the percentage that each category contributes, each department contributes to our year. So we can give you some idea.
Promises even.
Yeah, because I did that. I did the pie chart, and then I left it on the desktop
Oh,
instead of
okay.
mailing it to myself, putting it on a drive, sending it to you, or any things I should have done after actually doing that
Putting it in
stupid thing.
Dropbox so we have access
Yeah,
to it.
basic things. I generally know the numbers, but I would love to be able to talk about
Sure.
them. So
That's
next week
fine.
for sure. Next episode, I promise. Promise.
So do we want to go down in order, or do we want to talk about the 3 failed categories first?
Let's talk about the 3 fail categories. If I remember, food, I think, was one, maybe.
Food, yes.
Yeah.
Food was down 25%, actually 26% if you
We
round up.
stopped selling sodas like the last 3 months of the
Yeah,
year.
and honestly,
The last quarter of the year.
food is a non-category because our 2017 total for food was $77.28.
So if that
And
thing
our
went up 100%, it went up to $150.
Yes.
which
And
is
our
a lot.
2018 total was $57.22.
Yeah.
So while there was a 25% drop, that was $20.
Yeah.
And that's a category we still have on the system, but we don't actively sell
No.
food anymore.
in fact, when we were
We
doing
never really did.
the year in inventory, we basically put it as not applicable
Yeah.
because we don't carry it on the floor. Anything,
So
anything
I
anymore.
I started going through and deleting, and this has taken forever, zero out categories. Like promotional materials that have a $0 amount.
Sure.
But I'm deleting them item by a time.
Uh-huh.
And as I'm scrolling through, I'm like, oh, look, here's all these categories for bags of chips we used to sell.
Yep.
Or candy we used to sell.
Yeah.
So weird. But yes, food was down 25%. As you said, not applicable.
Mm-hmm. There's one I'm going to save to last.
Yes, obviously. So there's only one more.
Posters?
Posters were down. Yes,
posters.
yes.
It was posters.
Posters were down 10.68% from 2017.
Yeah, that's not great.
We have a limited amount of space where posters go,
Yeah.
and when that runs out, like we actually started carrying more rolled posters this year.
We did, yeah.
But
Those don't sell that
Those
great.
don't sell.
Because
No.
people can't see them.
Yeah.
That's why we didn't stock them before. Because
But
you
we
can't
got rid
see
of the
them.
poster rack because they never sold even when they were on display.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would, without looking at it, I would say our 2018 sales for posters were still up over our 2016 sales for posters.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Because we did start stocking them more, but 2017 was an up year, and then 2018 is kind of leveling out.
2019, though, we're going to start carrying a new product line when they become flat as opposed to rolled. And those will do what you got me for Christmas.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I thought,
Did they ever get back to you?
Well, no, they said in January they're going to start
Oh,
selling
okay.
them
Okay.
shrink wrapped as opposed to rolled.
Perfect.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, those are a much thicker stock.
Yeah.
I don't like selling things like that rolled.
Yeah.
I like the idea of them being flat.
We're not
So
going to name the provider, but we're looking into a company that does
I honestly don't
16 by
remember their
18,
name.
18 by 24.
18 by 24.
Prints, comic book themed prints.
Real infographic stuff. Real
Yeah.
fun stuff.
Yeah, some good stuff.
But those will probably just wind up going in the poster bin anyway.
I don't know. I'd like to find a better spot for them. It depends on how many we get and how much space they take up. Yeah, we'll look into that for sure. The other category that went down was a trivial amount. It was like minus 0.78% was Marvel Comics.
Marvel Comics went down.
Yeah, which a drop of less than 1% is flat.
Now,
Flat.
remember, how many thousands of dollars was it the previous year?
How much did it go down?
Yeah,
Oh,
enough that Bleeding Cool did an article about how...
It was a sizable number.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit
So-
more granularly when we get into the top 100 best-selling comics for the year. But Marvel definitely in mid-year started to relaunch a lot of its core franchises, and those launches were significantly higher than what those books were selling before. So that helped a lot for 2018.
Yeah, they boosted a little by the end, but
Yeah.
the difference for Marvel was $700.
Yeah,
That's all.
but I mean, digging themselves. Yeah, it's yeah. There's still a ton of work to be done.
It's fun to say that Marvel was our only down publisher, but I'd like to point out...
Wait, so was the 2018? We were down from even 2017 from Marvel? God, yeah, we must have been.
Yeah.
And 2017 was down huge from 2016. Is that right? Is that the history lesson?
I mean, I don't have the... oh, yeah. Wait, I don't have 2016 on this list.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you made this
Because
list.
is that what you were talking about? The 2016 Marvel drop was so big that Bleeding Cool covered it?
The 2017 drop from last year at this point, we were talking about the previous year.
Okay.
So 2017 was the drop.
So the drop is for the calendar year of 2017.
Yes.
Okay. So being flat, they did not do any... They have not dug themselves out of any hole.
Correct.
Yeah. So while the relaunches were great, clearly did not matter.
They still
in
fell a
retrospect.
tiny little bit even
So
more.
my analysis was woefully off base because they still managed to not shore up. And again, I guess we'll talk about this when we get to the top 100. But the launches were huge for Avengers, for Black Panther, for Spider-Man especially. All of those books are selling basically by the end of 2018 what they were selling at the beginning of 2018. So
Yeah.
like the huge launches, no follow through. People love buying Marvel #1s. They don't love buying #3s. So yeah, that would explain it. And that is a huge structural problem for Marvel as a company to maybe try and address is how in this market do you get people to buy something that isn't marked at issue 1? Like Marvel and to a lesser extent DC have spent a decade now training people to only buy issue 1s. And if you're going to do a bunch of issue 1s every month, you're never going to see a boost for any book. It's going to start at a level, and then it's just going to trend down, and it might plateau, but then eventually it's just going to trend down again. There's never a spike. It never goes back up. So whatever you launch at, basically you can figure out by issue 8 you're going to be selling 30% of that.
Yeah.
That's basically the math that we've seen at least. And that's not good. Then you're getting into these situations where less than 12 months you have to relaunch it because you're selling miserably. So yeah, that is a problem for sure as a publisher. Yeah.
So even though Marvel was basically flat for the year,
Mm-hmm.
and DC was up 6.7% for the year,
Mm-hmm.
there is still a $25,000 gap between those two companies for the year.
Yeah, and we'll touch on this when we get to the top 100 comics. DC's strength as a publisher, at least in 2018, but I would say before that, is in events. Way more than Marvel, they're able to kind of say, this Dark Knight's Metal thing, this Doomsday Clock thing, this Batman Damn thing, this matters. And people who casually read comics, not even casually read superhero comics, but just, once or twice a year will pop into a comic shop, that's on their radar. The monthly Batman comic, Superman comic, Flash comic, they're not readers of that. But when DC says this 12-issue thing is a big deal, or this 7-issue thing is a big deal, they're on board, and they're on board for basically the whole thing. Marvel has not been able to do that with their events. They'll get people checking out issue 1 of Secret Empire or Infinity Wars or whatever, but then they don't read the rest of it. It just drops continuously through the run, and they don't read the tie-ins, and they don't do the other stuff. So War of the Realms as a Thor fan, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be real good. I like Russell Dauterman a lot. I'm excited to see him doing more Thor stuff. But in my head, I'm like, all right, that's issue 1's maybe 150%, 200% of Thor.
Oh, if that.
And then, well, that's what I'd order for issue 1. And then I can pretty much tell you by issue 4, it's going to be about 75 to 80% of Thor, probably.
Yeah.
But we know that they'll buy issue 1, but they won't buy the rest of it.
And they're already marketing it as like, oh, like here's all the road to, like these 4 Avengers books, this Punisher book.
DC issue 2 of Batman Damned for Us has already outsold Batman Damned number 1. And that's to people who cannot get a copy of Batman Damned number 1.
Or did elsewhere.
Maybe, but maybe they didn't.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just like, I read it digitally, but I want the comic, but I'm going to do this. So that number even went up for us.
Weird. But they look at Middle West, where we sold out a number 1 immediately and now have a bunch of 2.
No, Image is in the Marvel boat of, even if people buy an issue 1 of Image, which they don't for a lot of those, there's no follow-through. Die number 1, which is a book I was incredibly excited about and thought had a ton of potential. We have not sold out of our first print of issue 1, which I thought for sure we would blow out of in 2 weeks.
I think Die would have done better if it came out after Wick Div was over.
Maybe. But then it's harder for them to maybe promote it if they don't have Wick Div coming out continuously.
Or like at the same time.
Yeah, I thought for sure it would explode, and it's done well. I don't dislike the sales, but it's nothing I would rave about. And
We thought it was going to be much more significant.
Yeah, for sure. And that is like, I would consider like a top tier Image seller for us now, and it's a book where I'm like, it's okay, doing all right. Could do better.
I don't know that we're going to get to the top hundreds in this episode.
You really don't want to? Okay.
I mean, I don't know that we're...
Because we spent so much time talking about Bears.
Yes, the 3 minutes at the beginning of this, there about the Bears. So, what we're trying to say after mentioning those 3 categories that are down, every other category was up for us.
Yeah, some a lot.
So, we said, we didn't bury the lead, we said it earlier on. 2018 was up 6.14% over 2017.
Yeah.
Which is basically what we were down from the year before, so we're almost at the level we were at then. That's fine.
Yeah, we've gotten back on track.
Our highest gains, but they're not as significant.
Yeah, this is percentage gains, not dollar gains.
Yeah, 86% up in card games.
Card games, out of nowhere. I mean, that's our whole games category.
That's gaming, yeah, that's right, gaming as well. But we did do more, but that's Dungeons & Dragons.
Yeah, we did more board games, and we stocked more
emphasis
D&D
in
stuff.
the past tense.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, so while we had more board games and stuff, those did not hugely contribute to our bottom line to the extent that a lot of those we remaindered by the end of the year, and will not be stocking the level of board games in 2019 that we did in 2018. We did stock, again, Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Those weren't huge movers for us.
No, not what we thought they would be.
Magic, though, and D&D definitely contributed a lot to the bottom line, to the extent where I started to think, maybe we need to look at doing like Magic drafts and stuff. Clearly there's an audience that's buying cards from us. Maybe we do something. Maybe we figure out a way to make that work. I don't know. I'll think about it. I will definitely consider it in a way that I didn't want to consider it a few months ago.
Yeah.
People do ask us occasionally, and we've had long discussions on this podcast about why we don't do it.
I think more people ask us about D&D, but I don't see a way to make money doing that.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have... Basically, the way we would do a Magic draft is move the Sidekicks bookshelves out into the store, put some tables in there, because we're not going to get kids coming in buying kids' books at 8 o'clock on a Friday night or whatever, or Thursday night or whatever night we do it on. And you can set up a few tables, and you get 8 people showing up, and they do a draft, and you're sold a box of boosters. Do you know what I mean?
Why wouldn't you just put the table down the...
Because I still want it to be a thing. If people come in the store, they can still get to the graphic novel bookshelves. They can get to the comic section.
They're not going to, though.
Well, I guess that's a wait and see.
Okay. I hate to see all this effort put in because moving those bookies.
I know, that's why I hesitate to do it because
would you move them out or just push them against the wall?
Maybe push them against the wall.
Yeah,
it
that's way
depends
easier.
on how you fit the tables. Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
you got to fit 2 folding tables in there and 8 chairs. So I don't know. But anyway, long story short, that is under consideration for 2019. Maybe trying to do Magic stuff again. I don't know. Just
this
draft,
is a little segue, but there are things that other stores do that I look at and think, that's a neat idea. And then I think, the amount of energy expended on that, I don't think it's worth it for us.
No.
And I also kind of don't want to.
Because we've spent years putting effort and energy into similar things and finding the return on investment not what we expect.
And I don't... I don't want to feel like I'm being lazy about it,
Right.
but I don't. My time is not worthless.
No, and I mean, some of it is, it's twofold. One, we're both getting older. So the ability and energy to do things that take a lot of extra hours effort or, extracurricular kind of stuff is a thing where we're just as likely to go, no, then yeah. Because we're not as young as we used to be. And when we were younger, we would absolutely be like, yeah, let's be open for 24 hours straight or whatever. And we would never do that again.
That's not true.
It was a joke.
Okay.
I wasn't gonna say that, but yeah. That was a joke just for your benefit.
Well, it made me laugh, so there you go.
But the other thing is
What are you talking about?
is that, and this is, the amount of business we do determines kind of the way we staff things. And we don't necessarily have the infrastructure to staff things to the level that we could delegate huge projects to people who work for us.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that you're looking at, the stores that are doing those things, have a larger dedicated full-time staff or even a larger, more active part-time staff that can make those things happen. The way that Challengers is structured, because of the amount of business we do, those things almost always fall just to you and me. And since we're already both working full-time hours at the store and then part-time hours doing extracurricular things for the store,
Like
adding
this.
on more becomes a thing of like, how badly do you want to do this? Instead of just being able to say, well, these two part-timers can do it, done.
Oh, I know.
We can't do that, so we don't do that. But yeah, maybe Magic cards. I don't know. It definitely feels like it could be a growth thing.
From there, we had two categories that were up 31%. That would be T-shirts
Mostly
and
pins.
Yes, T-shirts. The T-shirt category is apparel.
Yeah, it's clothing,
and that's
wearables.
pins. It's definitely not.
It's
physical
all
T-shirts.
enamel pins and buttons.
We carry less T-shirts than ever.
Yeah. Can't get rid of the ones we do have.
And back issues, old comics.
Yeah, back issues went up somehow.
I mean,
how.
we have more on the floor than ever before.
But only just recently.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
that's within
true.
the last month. So over the rest of the year, people were buying more back issues.
Now, keep in mind that those two categories are fairly close in the amount of money they bring in, and it's very small. But we don't have the percentages, so I can't tell you what. But I mean, it is. I can tell you 1%. Yeah, 1%. 1%.
Are you looking to see what
Yeah.
percentage of the business this is?
Yes.
They're both 10.
They're not 10%.
Yeah, 1%.
Yeah.
1%.
1%.
1% of the business. Yeah.
It's
not-
so
it's
funny
not a
to
lot.
say enamel pins are doing great and they've gone up and it's 1% of
But
our
I mean,
business.
I'll still take
Yeah,
1%.
absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
like when we talk about doing stuff like Magic events, that's just because in my head I'm like, all right, it's if you sell a box of boosters, it's $4 a booster, 36 boosters. That's $144. Is that right? Yeah.
Sure. I don't. do
Yeah,
that in my head.
$144. If we could get $144 extra every week, I would take that.
Yeah, that's true.
Sure.
That's true.
An extra $600 a month? Yeah, man. I would not be angry about that number at all.
Oh man. So I'm gonna go through this just with really bad math.
Mhm.
Gaming 2%. Toys not quite 6%. Posters 0.5%. T-shirts and back issues 1%. Supplies almost 3%.
Mhm.
And supplies were up 7%. This is where I can't do the math in my head and I can't use my phone just for the top 4 categories.
Oh, okay.
You can at least you can use your phone. I can't use my phone. My phone is recording, and we found out when I try to bounce between programs to
It's a great way for it
get
to
something
turn
else, it stops recording. It's not like an automatic music player or the BBC radio app that keeps playing in the background. No, it isn't. It doesn't do it that way. We can't jump back and forth. And yes, I am filling time. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, it looks like graphic novels is about 35% of our business.
Okay.
I'm just going to put all comics together
Okay.
because that's a number I'm more interested in.
Sure. 35% is smaller than I would have expected, especially since that category went up this year.
Yeah. No, 35%.
Okay. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I'm
Sure.
surprised. I thought it was more.
Single issue comics basically amount to about 48% of our business.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Which means comics and graphic novels altogether is like 83% of our business.
Fine.
Which, I mean, that's what when I say that we're a kind of a reader-focused store, not a collectibles-focused store, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Is we'll sell some other stuff, but it's a very small part of our business. And none of that is collector-oriented. That's not, board books. That's not vintage comics. Like, I'm not even including the back issue category in that figure because that's like clearance merchandise, Like that's, I guess I could even include that and it would just boost that number up even higher by like 1%.
It's a little interesting to see that the vast majority of our floor space is graphic novels, yet they're not the vast majority of the sales.
No, well, the thing to consider is I don't know exactly what our percentage of subscriber versus non-subscriber sales are.
Yeah.
So that's...
Where's that total?
Yeah, right? That I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know how to get that number out of the system.
Well, you have your own sheet of notes over there.
I do. The two things I guess I wanted to talk about real quick, just two little notes about data. So...
and his brother Lore.
Yeah, right? We just talked about percentages for the store. Just to give you some idea, comics for the year, single-issue comics from...
2018.
Yeah, from 2018 that we sold 58,797 comics. For graphic novels, we sold 9,853 graphic novels. That is not counting back issues. That's not counting discounted merchandise. Those are just full price, off the shelf, or subscribe to comics and graphic novels. We also took out 64 Christmas cards that never got picked up.
Which is down from the almost 100 of last year.
Yeah, good job, everybody.
We're down the number of subscribers. We're down a handful of subscribers,
okay.
all things considered.
Still good job, everybody.
You said it was 65?
64 cards.
64. And what was the total number of graphic novels sold?
9,853.
Okay. Interesting.
And almost 59,000 comics.
I don't have the graphic novel number on my notes, and I should have...
I did that later.
Okay.
I don't think I gave that to you when I was giving you data points. Because after doing the comics one, I'm like, what was the graphic novel one? I feel like I should know that. And I looked it up.
I guess we'll save the rest of the information I have here, which is for the top hundreds lists for next time.
For the next one?
Because there's other stuff I want to get to this episode.
Okay.
One of the main things I want to get to is that this is a new year, but also a new year. It's a new month.
It is.
And in each month, we like to thank our Patreon patrons. And we also would love it if anyone listening would rate or review this on iTunes. That'd be lovely. Blah, 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 algorithm, blah, blah, blah. But like I noticed recently, we only had 18 reviews or ratings total for a podcast that's been going for over 9 years. That's a low number. So you don't have to write a full review if you don't want to. But if you listen to this on iTunes, you can just throw a star rating down. That'd be cool. We'd appreciate that. And we definitely appreciate this level of patrons. That includes Ryan Alcock, Mike Lee, Mitchell Davies from All-Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, who we have a brief story about in a moment, Thomas Nagovin, Jose Villagomez, the entire Springham family, Michael Romanenko, I guess his whole family too, Artie White and his whole family, George Brower, not his whole family, Morgan Kaiju Perry from Boom Studios, Robert Lane, Jacob Sorelli, or Hackup Sorelli, I'm still not sure. But still, we appreciate...
Both of them.
Yeah, that counts as two. Christina McChrystal and Tom Shapira. So thank you all for being patrons. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
And we mentioned Mitchell Davies from All-Star Comics in Melbourne, and he's been on the podcast before, and will again. And we reference his store a lot. He's one of the retailers I feel closest to, obviously not geographically, but in mission statement.
Spiritually.
And, there you go, spiritually. Well, my niece is on her honeymoon, and she was in Australia, so I made up a little care package of local books from Chicago and asked her if she wouldn't mind stopping at All-Star Comics and dropping them off.
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, you're taking stuff from the Chicago ecosystem and having someone introduce it into the Australian ecosystem? So dangerous. So dangerous.
It's cross-pollination.
If you're lucky. What if it's introducing like an apex predator into that environment. Now what? So short-sighted.
You're right. I hadn't considered.
You had
Mitchell and everyone at All Star. I apologize.
those Rachel Bard comics are going to be systematically destroying everything else in the Australian comics ecosystem, leaving nothing left but our friends the bees. That's the only thing.
Literally bees and that book.
Yeah, that book
it
and
works on
bees.
both ways. So, in fairness, Mitchell has written to me about it. I have yet to read that message, so I'm sorry, Mitchell. I did get it. I just haven't opened it yet. But it was, I forget, Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, around 1 a.m., I got a text from my niece with a picture. That picture is the image that is gracing this episode of Contest of Challengers. And it is Mitchell Davies from All Star holding up a stack of Challengers bookmarks, because I threw them in there as well.
Good idea.
And I thought it would be neat to give them a little sampling of what the local scene is like here.
Sure.
Obviously, I'm not going to say hey, have you read Heroes in Crisis? 'Cause, yeah. But I wanted to give them something specifically Chicago related.
Sure.
And I was fortunate that my niece and I guess nephew-in-law, while they were going all over Australia, and they did have time in Melbourne, they didn't have anything specifically blocked out, so they had the ability to go to the store.
To run an errand for you.
And Stephanie also sent me some other photos, and I've seen a lot of photos of All-Star online, but it's very impressive, and I hope to visit it one day. It's, first of all...
Why not tomorrow?
What? It is tomorrow now.
Sure.
I felt a little bit bad because Stephanie had said that they were going to be there sometime between the 3rd and the 5th, but they got there on the 2nd, and they showed up on a Wednesday. But it was late enough in the day, I guess, based off of the time she sent the photo. I mean, I don't know for sure if she sent it when she was there or whatever. But, I hope that they weren't too busy to, I hope that they weren't distracting the people that work there.
Let's hope not.
Yeah, so that was a fun, it's fun to do that kind of stuff and to see it actually land.
Sure.
I appreciated that. So thank you, Stephanie, for bringing those books out. And that was basically all I had wanted to get to for this episode.
Okay.
I literally, because we're recording early because our next several days are
Busy.
Personally busy. Wrestle Kingdom. Amongst other things, I have family obligations. I already dropped that in last week. I used it again last week. I'm not putting it in.
Why is the Jericho-Naito match not the main event? Insane to me.
We don't know that it isn't.
I feel like, looking at the card...
No, you just saw a list. You don't know
but that
what the order is.
That looked like the card order. I'd be shocked if it were another way.
We'll see.
We will.
We'll see.
No, we know the main event match is going to be Kenny Omega versus Tanahashi.
Maybe.
Of course it is. Come on. I know this is not your first Wrestle Kingdom. I know it's not.
It is my 4th.
Okay.
It's only their 13th, so
Right.
I don't feel like I'm...
Don't say a number higher than 13.
That's right. And Mike Lee and I had talked about possibly being at this one live, but clearly we're not.
14 it is.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hit Australia while you're out there.
Right? Close enough. So, yeah, we have slowly started posting events that we have coming up. You can always check out our events at challengers.events. That's the full URL, challengers.events. Type that in your browser. You'll get a list of all of our events. And so far, they are all women-centric.
Yeah.
Which, I'm fine with that.
Women and non-binary centric.
We did get an email from a creator saying, hey, did we talk about doing something on Free Comic Book Day? And I responded with, we did, but you said you were busy doing this other thing. However, if you're not, we'd love to have you. Mm-hmm. And I never heard back.
Okay.
It was also from a different email address from that creator, and my computer said, hey, don't trust this. But it was specific enough. I'm like, no, this is legit.
Okay.
I guess. I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe it's somebody who was cleverly hacking us and found out that we didn't have this person for Free Comic Book Day. And they're going to swoop in.
Corporate espionage.
I know, right? It happens all the time.
Typical.
I guess next week we'll do the top 100 stuff. And
yeah, you can go read it on our website right now. You have to dig a little bit, but it's in the store news section, I think.
Yeah.
So you can find it there. It's basically all that's in the store news section is the last few years' worth of that.
And probably every once in a while, we're open these hours.
I stopped
on
even
this.
doing that because
Did you?
no one checks the website for that. They either call or they check online, and as long as we're updating Google and Yelp with it, we're fine. We're covered.
I don't update those two.
I do.
Oh,
because
interesting.
Google and Yelp will usually send emails saying, "Hey, let people."
Oh
know your
yeah,
updated
I get
hours."
those. I ignore them.
Oh, I take care of it.
Interesting.
We're basically fine up until 4th of July, maybe,
Yeah.
or
So what days
Memorial
are you
Day?
closing early?
Like Memorial Day
Uh-huh.
will be the next one, probably. I can't think of a day we'll be closed or closing early before that.
Not President's Day.
No.
Not
Just Memorial Day,
What's
4th
his
of
name?
July, Labor Day.
what? Hold on. Wait.
Casimir Pulaski.
Thank you, Casper Pulaski. Not Casper Weingard Day. not Noah Syndergaard Day.
We're all very excited about Peter Cannon Thunderbolt, but I don't think it's worth closing early for.
Not Noah Syndergaard Day.
Uh-huh.
Not Valpurgis Night.
But yeah, you can go ahead and go to our website and read the top 100 lists. There's some extra data, I think, for the graphic novels to break it down by categories. And then we will dive into that next week. I don't know if it's what we'll talk about in an entire episode, because I don't honestly know if it's worth talking about for an entire episode. But we'll touch on it.
And to follow up on something from weeks ago that it wasn't necessarily meant to be followed up on, but I'd asked if Dal could give me a little fun URL shortcut to new releases, and he did. It's newreleases.challengerscomics.com. That'll always take you to the most recent list of new releases. So if you're ever unsure of what's coming out, newreleases.challengerscomics.com. And if you want to know what our events are, it's challengers.events. And if you buy your comics digitally but still listen to this podcast and want a way to support, we do have a portal for Comixology. And I don't know if challengersdigital.com is still a URL that we own. We used to. I don't know if we let it go or not. But you can... I'll post about that somewhere.
Okay.
But that's... I like that there are still people that either shop with us or don't anymore, but shop with us electronically. That still works. And hopefully your body still works after the first week of a new year. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you.
Thanks. You too.
Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.
Tommy from First Aid.
Yeah, okay.
So we happened to be right in front of Mean Gene Okerlund at the time that we did this. And Mean Gene is an old school WWF announcer. The guy who'd always be like, you know, here's the match coming up and what do you have to say about it, Hot Rod?
Yeah.
That guy.
He's maybe my third favorite WWF/WWE announcer.
Do you mean like interviewer or do you count like JR in that?
Voice.
Or...
JR is the top
Okay,
for me.
okay.
JR is the absolute,
So,
undisputed,
let's go
never
with
beaten
voice.
top.
And then Paul Heyman.
Vince is probably second. Because Vince on commentary.
1, 2, he got him. No, he didn't.
Again, iconic.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I can't, that's...
Yeah. What a maneuver!
When I hear wrestling in my brain, those are the voices I hear.
Yes.
It's never going to be Bradshaw, or it will never in a million years be Michael Cole. Never. Patrick, never.
I'm with you. I think the most common imitated phrase is, well, you know something, Mean Gene.
Yeah. So yeah, Gene Okerlund is definitely like, as an interviewer, as a voice of the WWF, like.
So
yeah.
we happen to be right a person or two space-wise away from Mean Gene Okerlund.
Mm-hmm.
And we pause for a second, and Gene looks at us and goes, gentlemen, how are you? Good to see you again. How have you been?
Right.
So we walk over to his table, and I shake his hand.
Yeah.
I'm like...
And I say hi.
Really good, Mean Gene, how are you? And he does the thing that...
Yeah.
He's like,
He
not so great. I gotta stay away from...
He recently had gallbladder problems, so he was gesturing to his gallbladder, and he had been, I guess, informed by his physician not to eat certain kinds of food.
Which is the con is full of.
Yes.
Meanwhile, I got a piece of pretzel in my mouth, holding the Coke Zero in one hand, so I quickly hide my hands behind my
What
back,
food?
like, nothing, I got nothing. So we chatted with Mean Gene for a little bit, and this is the point where I always feel like...